Hello, I'm 𝗪𝗓𝗓𝗪𝗓𝗓𝗔𝗗, Senior Internal Audit Advisor for Audit Board. Welcome to another in my series of Agents of Change. I'm joined today by Sayuri Ohno, who is the Vice President and Chief Audit Executive of Electronic Arts. She's been with EA for 20 years. Before that, she served with KPMG. Sayuri, thank you so much for joining me today. It's really great to have you here.
It's a pleasure being here with you, Richard, and an honor. Thank you.
Sayuri, I have authored this book, Agents of Change, and in that book, I argue that internal auditors have an important role to play in helping organizations drive positive transformational change. I define agents of change as those internal auditors who are catalysts for transformational change that not only protects value, which has been a traditional role for internal audit, but more importantly helps to create value in the organizations they serve. So tell me, is that a role you think internal audit should play? How do you see that?
So yes, I really agree that internal audit can play a very active role in being a catalyst for transformation, change, and hopefully help progress. And the reason that I believe in that is because we have I would say the privilege of being involved and seeing a lot of things around the company, understand process procedures, run the enterprise risk assessment throughout the company. And now, with the help of Audit Board at EA, we are also implementing the enterprise risk management. I think it's a natural, organic change, transformation for internal audit as well, right? But just to complement on the thought that doing the risk assessment, the next step of having the enterprise risk management being part of not only these are the identified risks and what's happening today with the company, but these are the things that we are doing to mitigate it. Mm-hmm. And these are the things that, are residual. And we feel that we are not going to get into it due to our priorities. So having that story end to end, and as internal audit has visibility into all of this, and in addition to having the historical best practices, all that experience that you have, I think that you need to bring that out and let that expand as well.
Well, you've had the opportunity to be a part of your company during much of its history. I can't think of many companies that have a more pristine reputation for being transformational than EA. So have you seen things over the course of your career at EA that you think enables you to be a more powerful agent of change in internal audit?
Thank you for your question. Great question. I would say yes. I started my career actually just as a senior accountant, overseeing the consolidation process. Prior to that, I was with KPMG, and I was the accountant responsible, or the manager responsible for the account in Japan. And that's how I met the CFO, and he asked me if I wanted to move to California and join Electronic Arts. Within that, for context, what I want to say is from external audit to coming in, working for a software company in the Silicon Valley, it was a very different experience. And within EA, I have really the opportunity to work in different countries. So I worked in the headquarters, then I moved to Japan, I moved to where I was the liaison for the Japan office with the headquarters. And I moved to Brazil to start up our business in Latin America with the 5 people in the office. Then I moved back to the headquarters. Short to say that, yes, I had being exposed to very different sizes of the company where we have studios only, and where we actually are starting our operations in a very complex environment where Brazil is because of the taxation and everything else. So within that, I think that over time, you see a lot of things, and that desire of making the company or contributing to the success of the company is always been with me.
Well, that's great. One of the questions that we explored in the book is, how does management in a company and how does the board see internal audit in terms of its ability to drive change? So have you found management in your company and your board to be supportive of internal audit being change agents?
Yes, I've been very fortunate as well to have the support of management. One example of that is I was newly appointed to the head of internal audit. We had also a new CEO appointed, 𝗪𝗓𝗄𝗧, and I was meeting with 𝗪𝗓𝗞𝗘, and he introduced me to Andrew and said, "This is a person that I want you to meet, on a quarterly basis and listen to her." So to me, that is support. Mm-hmm. Also, I throughout my career, because I was working closely with the business affairs, I have a great opportunity to work with 𝗪𝗲𝗟𝗟, who I learned tons from in terms of business, legal, and how to negotiate contracts. So I do think that management is vested in increasing their influence, visibility into how they can actually help the company to thrive and be successful. I think for board members, it's more on the visibility side, right, and for management to understand the insights of things that they may not be exposed to unless they really run the enterprise risk assessment, for instance.
Turning back to internal audit for a moment, one of the challenges internal audit departments have is the capacity to address all the risks in an organization. A very complex organization like yours, I'm sure you never feel like you have enough auditors. But one of the ways that I've found that internal audit departments can overcome that limitation of resources is through the use of technology. I refer to technology as the capacity multiplier. Do you rely heavily on technology in the internal audit department, and are there any specific examples that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I would say that technology helps you to set a baseline, right? Whether it is on SOX, operational audits, linking the enterprise risk assessment with your audit plan. And I also think that it increases not only the visibility, but the accountability that the owners of risks, owners of controls and processes have, and the ability of them talk about their own challenges and trying to solve that, really collaborating more and cooperating more. I do believe that technology, in a technology company that develops softwares, it's really key. I cannot go talk to my business partners if I'm not technology savvy, or I cannot point to things that we are using technology to enhance our own process. It's really hard to talk to someone about solutions when you cannot point to best practices that you being exposed or you are practicing as well.
So how do you, as a chief audit executive, how do you recruit and retain the talent that it takes to drive change in the organization?
That's a very good question, but I'm going to answer that. I think talent, there are different ways to tackle that. And I would say there is the junior person that you hire outside of just new grad that you just bring in and you develop them. There is the team that then stayed and became very seasoned and mature in internal audit and company processes. But there is a very healthy exchange of talent within the organization and internal audit. And I think that is very important. So a lot of our team members go out to the business, but we also bring people from the business that perhaps don't have internal audit experience, but very, very strong skill sets. And then we develop them into the audit procedures. So I think that talent, you had to really look into that from a very broad point of view. And auditors to me today doesn't mean just accountants and auditors. It means more. It means people that are technology savvy, that have very IT, strong background, IT security. It's a very broad skill set that we are looking into. And I think that the retention that you mentioned is we can enrich that with secondments, exposing people to first-hand experience to different parts of the organization, enrich that because they have the opportunity to work with the best and learn from the best, right? And become not only an auditor, but a professional as a whole that can articulate issues, problems, and seeing things from different angles. Sorry for the long answer, but talent is something that I'm very passionate about.
Oh no, the point you made was excellent, because you talked about rotating internal auditors into the business and then back into internal audit. And one of the four skills that we found that agents of change must have is business acumen. The others were a strategic mindset, an innovative mindset, and being relationship-centric. Are there any other skills besides those that you think it really, really critical, that it really takes and are really critical to be change agents in internal audit?
I will expand a little bit on that by saying empower your business partners. Trust that they can do their jobs well. Because if they can, then you can refine even more the job, your own job as internal auditor. So it is, I think that being, of course, adaptable, flexible, having a strong business acumen, and having a strategic mindset is important. But as internal audit evolves and get more involved on risks, risk management, and having expanded conversations, I think it's also important to have a shift in the mindset. And by what I mean by that is it is a forward-looking, right? After the pandemic, it's going to be very difficult to say we're going to go back to anything that we were doing before. Right. And every day we get, I would say we evolve. I don't like really the term disruptive environment, but everything is changing so fast. The momentum going, it keeps getting faster and faster. To be able to absorb that and really be proactive and get ahead of some of these issues, your mindset needs to be more forward-looking and be more how do you anticipate some of these risks that we were talking about? That is not about the now, because the now, if you want to put something to address the risks that you're having now, it will be reactive. How do you put you get into a little bit ahead of it and get to points where you're addressing risks that are imminent, that you are ready for it. And with that, you gain a little bit more confidence in moving forward and bring the entire team, with you, because you're already having that conversation. So the flow is a lot more proactive and a more forward-looking. Right. So that is something, that is a skill that I think it is evolving, and it is really something that I'm pushing my team to plan more, to think ahead more, to really get ahead of all these issues, potential issues that we may have in internal controls now. So let's design all the internal controls related to this new software adoptions, new external reporting, new regulatory things that we need to do now and not after the fact. So readiness reviews, advisory work are getting a lot more common in our work.
So, Sayuri, if I ask you to pull out your crystal ball and look at the next 10 years, are there things you would urge internal auditors to consider when preparing themselves to be successful?
Leverage technology for sure, because I think that if you have a unified, integrated baseline where you can have all your information there, whether it is related to SOX, ops, and projects that you have, related to risks and your audit plan, you elevate that, you make it available to everyone that own parts of that. So I think that also try to document more of the best practices. So you sort of share that knowledge, throughout the company. The baseline is higher now, is integrated. You have technology, and you can then run a lot more advanced data analytics. You can be more meaningful the way you distribute data, knowledge, and the things that are actually happening right now, and give the opportunity to the business to think it through how they are not only doing their work today, but how they are going to integrate the new technology. What are the questions that they should be thinking of? So they are weaving all of these risks and the learnings as they're building the process today. So when they get to your 10 years there, they'll feel they're in a much better place, right? And for that, of course, it's not only just words. It requires you to think about how you're going to measure progress. How do you know when something goes wrong? How you course correct? How do you step back and look into things so you can recalibrate all the time? Because the environment is very dynamic, and you have an external environment that moves out there, and you have an organic growth within your own company. And I think it's really important to match both of them so you understand where you are. And that constant communication, conversation, and calibration is what I believe we as auditors can bring to the business, is that bird eye view without getting too involved into the politics and everything else, having an objective, neutral position into the business and how things are connected.
Excellent points. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing these tremendous insights. And I look forward to watching all the change that you continue to drive in your organization. And it's just great to know that our profession has so many talented people like you out there leading internal audit to new heights. Thank you again.
Thank you. I appreciate it.